Good morning! Today we are making a video on how to plant without tilling the soil. My little machine my little Earthway seeder that I push along the ground, it will work to plant in a no-till system if you're planting shallow and if you have a lot of compost on the ground, because the compost will just move out of the way. You can use that. But in a lot of soils, that's not going to work real well. So I recently did a soil test, that was yesterday by the way, on this piece of ground where my leaves don't look good. These plants should be big, they should be beautiful, they should be pretty. We should not have this going on. Instead of light green, I should have dark green. It is producing beans on here. We do have beans, but they're not growing very fast. Things aren't doing real good. It is October, so they're not going to grow as quick as they would in June or July. But, so I did the soil test and it told me that my soil was mostly bacteria. Now up here on the top I have good things happening in the compost, but down deep not so much is happening. So we've got to penetrate the ground. I could penetrate the ground with a drill. I could drill a lot of holes in here and then rake compost down inside to get the microbes down in there, and I probably should do that. But I want to try to do that with daikon radishes instead. So we're going to plant the daikon radishes right now so that we can get these in here, and we're going to plant them in a no-till way. So that's what the dibble is for. This is called a dibble, a dibbler or a dibber, depending on who you are and where you are. So I just want to make holes, and I don't care how far apart they're spaced. People worry too much about how far apart you space things. And then when I come to your garden, they say, what's wrong with my garden? And I say, you planted it too close together. So that makes me an inconsistent person. But if you plant crops between 6 inches and a foot apart, you're going to be doing pretty good. Things will be okay. So I'm just making holes in here randomly, right among these beans that are growing. Now I have little holes. I've gone through the compost and I'm down into the clay, because the compost is pretty thin on here. It's about 1 inch thick is all. So I'm just going to stick that in the ground and leave it there. Now I'm going to get my daikon radishes and I'm going to put a radish seed in each hole. And this method makes me bend over so that I can get down in here, and that's fine. And you don't need a fancy dibbler like I have. I see an earthworm in one of the holes I just put here, so that's a good sign. So daikon radishes are going in here. Daikons get big. They'll get big around and really long, and they'll be beautiful. So there's the daikons. I'm also going to plant some sporadic kale in here. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to plant the kale. Okay, I'm just sowing the kale. I'm not putting it in there. I'm not putting it in the holes. I'm just putting it in here random. And as we water this, these will begin to sprout. So we'll have kale coming up in this bed with the daikons. There we go. We planted some kale. Kale is done. That was it. So that's one way to plant. Just sow it on top. Keep it moist for 2 weeks, and those will be coming up, because those little tiny seeds are gonna go down in the cracks and crevices of all that compost, and they'll come up. Will they all come up? No, but I'm not worried about that. They don't have to all come up. The daikon radish seeds are small, so it's hard to tell where I planted them. So I'm going to cover that row, and then I won't be confused on which ones have seeds. So we're just putting holes in here randomly, about 8 inches apart. Okay, 1/3 of this bed is planted and we're done. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a different machine. This is a planter, and these are cheap. They're like 30, 40, 50 bucks on Amazon. And so you can stick it in the ground while this is closed. You stick it in the ground, and then you put a transplant in here with a root ball on it, because that's a big pipe. And then you can open it up and then lift it out, and it plants without bending over. Or you can stick it in and put your seeds in and open it up, and it'll plant it. I'm not sure how accurately it will plant in muddy soil, because when you stick it in, the mud can get on here, and then your little seeds, like radish seeds, would stick to that. So you have to look at this and see if it's sticking, and if it is, then you can't do it in muddy soil if your seeds are sticking to it. So I'm just going to gently put it in there, and I've barely gone in. You don't want to stick it in deep, because if your seeds are too deep, they won't come up. So now I'm going to drop a seed in there, and I'm going to open that and let it out. So hopefully my seed's down in there. Let's look and see. It looks like it did not stick on there. Okay, so one radish seed. Drop it in. Drop it in. Two radish seeds went in that one on accident. So it's a lot faster to use the dibble, but this would save your back if you can't bend over. This is how you plant with a no-till system. I'm not tilling, we're just planting directly in the soil here. So I better check this again and see if seeds are sticking on the inside here to little pieces of mud in there. And there are no seeds on there, so it's working. There is a little mud on there, but I don't have any radish seeds in there. This is inconvenient because you have to get the seed out each time. There's actually enough light coming between the cracks there. If I look straight down, I can see that the seed is planting properly. So that's kind of good. I wonder if the sun was shining bright. It may be too much of a glare and I couldn't see it down in that pipe. But maybe I could even see it better. It's just something you have to test out. So these daikon radish seeds are going to grow big and beautiful. And they're going to penetrate down and break up my hard pan in here. And they're going to be great food for earthworms. Earthworms love to eat daikon radishes when they dry. Now we could eat these radishes, but my purpose is to feed the soil. Okay, one of these seeds just stuck to a piece of mud in there, but I could see it, so it's actually working pretty good. It's working good to look down through here, because then you can watch and see what's happening. Okay, we got it planted. My back doesn't hurt now, but this hand hurts. So, that's kind of funny. Anyway, I think this would work really good if you had a partnership and you had one person handling seeds and the other person was doing this. You could stick that in, plant it, move it to the next one, the person would put the seed in, and then you'd move on. That could work really great. The other thing is what we used to do on the bigger farms is we would have a little can, a plastic little can, just like a cottage cheese container or something, and we would cut slits in it, put our belt through it so that that was there, so that we could grab the seeds like this and not have to hold on to it. One reason my hand was hurting is I was handling this and I was holding on to this at the same time, and it was just too much stress on this hand. But anyway, the daikons are in, so now they can start to repair this soil. And the kale is in, so that'll be our next crop after we harvest the beans. And then the kale can be here all winter long, so that's going to be great. So this is one method of how you plant with no-till. Now if you have an acreage or a farm and you're using a tractor, most modern planters will plant no-till. They're big, they're heavy, they have the nice steel disc on them that goes down and cuts a pathway. That's just how they're making modern, almost all modern planters are that way. Now, if you have a planter invented, you know, in 15 years and earlier, you could have planters that are not going to work super good without tilling first. And if you are rounding up older equipment that's lightweight, it's not going to work too good. But the good heavy machinery that they're building in the last 5 to 10 years, those I think every model out there plants really well. And we're talking about grain drills and planters both. So a grain drill, generally the spaces are closer together. Planters are usually do like a 27 or a 30 or 32 or 40 inch row, like you'd be planting corn or beans. And then the drills are going to be on 8 inch, 10 inch centers, so it just plants the whole thing. So anyway, super good to be here. It's good to be doing this project. I hope this is helping you have the very best garden of your life. I want you to have the best garden of your life. Ask me your questions. If I get millions of questions, even thousands of questions, I'm not going to be able to answer each one of them, but I will continue to make videos on the themes that I am getting. You know, I'll read through what people are saying, and I will try to have videos on everything that you need to have the best garden of your entire life. Gardening is easy. Gardening is simple. Gardening is hard work. There is an inconsistency in what I just said. But gardening is good. Gardening is not about the food always. Sometimes it is about the food. But gardening is about the human experience we have with nature. You know, people go hiking, people go camping, and some people garden. You know, we need to have that human interaction and that relationship with the natural world. It's very, very important. So sometimes gardening is about becoming the good citizen, like the ancient Greeks taught. That was what they believed, that farming and agriculture was to create the good citizen. That was the ultimate harvest of the soil. And that's what we are trying to create here in making these videos. We want you to be able to be the best person you can possibly be, and farming and gardening is one of the ways to achieve that. No, it's not for everyone, but it can certainly help a lot of people, especially if you have young people who are frustrated and they feel like they were born in the wrong time, in the wrong century. Maybe they need to get involved with something that brings them close to Mother Earth. Thank you very much. Have a great day. No-till gardening is the way to garden because it's easier. It's easier, it's cheaper. You make money on your small farms this way because you don't have to buy all this expensive stuff like tillers.